So whichever, because the knee is going to control the bottom part of your leg. So if you want your character's foot to be out like this, like your character's turning their leg outward, you need to draw the knee pointed in that direction too. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's just how our bodies work. There's no way where the knee is going to be facing one way and the foot facing a different. So in this pose, the knee is facing inward. And again, we're going to draw that weird little pyramid shape. We're going to draw our calf muscle. How do you say your name? Haljeg? I can't stop thinking about anatomy now. Well, hopefully it's a good thing. Hopefully I'm helping teach something. Alright, so now we've gotten to the feet. And the feet were actually really difficult for me for a long time until I broke it down into 3 shapes. So, once again, a foot is going to be 3 different shapes. Foot. You're going to have a very rounded triangle for the heel portion. You're going to have a rectangular not rectangle, like a cube shape for the middle portion. And then you're going to have little toes, which are squares. So this would be your big toe, and these would be your 4 other toes. I like to describe it in terms of Ninja Turtle feet. So if you break down the foot into Ninja Turtle feet, it would look like this, with just like 2 giant toes. But it gets your eye seeing how a foot looks in different perspectives, and it's much, much easier to draw when you do that. Well, that's good. I'm really glad that my stream's not choppy today. It was really bothering me when I was trying to draw for people, and it just kept timing out on y'all. Alright, so yes, we've gotten to this girl's feet. We're going to give her a heel that connects right at the ankle. And she's doing like the classic high-heeled, what do you call it? Like standing on your tippy toes pose for a foot. And that's going to be a lot easier to draw than a foot straight on the ground. Trust me, I know. A foot standing straight on the ground is it's really weird and kind of difficult to get used to drawing. But when you do the cat-like tippy toes pose that models tend to look like when they're wearing high heels, it's a lot easier to draw. So yeah, we're going to start with the triangle heel shape. We're going to add in our rectangle. And then we're going to give her Ninja Turtle toes. Oh, and I've heard in the past that I am lightning speed when I'm in Photoshop. So if I'm ever going too fast, or if you have a question about what I'm doing in the program, just ask in the chat, let me know. I'll stop and I'll explain what I'm doing. But on the fly, I always have my fingers on Control Z. So that way when I'm sketching, you know, if I do this, right, I make a stroke. Oh, I don't like that stroke. Control Z, I undo it. So if you ever see me, you know, do a big old stroke and I don't like it, Control Z, and I've just undone my last move. It's alright. Back to our model, back to Ninja Turtle toes. And again, because she's wearing these sexy looking heels, we're not going to need to go in and render each toe. We're not going to need to draw toes. Just going to need to draw the outline of her shoes. So pretend it's going over her toes. And I'm going to erase the toes and my other sketchy bits. Actually, her shoes are a bit steeper than this. And this is my process, once again, for people who just joined my stream. This is my process for every piece I draw. I start off with figures like this, very similar, and then I just break them down into these primitive shapes, and I render my characters from that. Now, obviously today, because I'm doing a teaching stream, I'm doing a pose that's a lot easier to just look at because it's just a figure standing there. I'm not doing a character that's involved in like a flip kick or like holding a weapon or anything that's a bit more complicated. I'm trying to just do something really simple to show you guys like the very basics of drawing. I think another really common mistake with people who are just learning how to draw is they typically do this. They'll have their figure standing, and like I said, it's a very common mistake, and then they won't keep the proportions of a human figure in mind as they go down. So you'll have a big head on a character, and then it just tapers down into having tiny little feet. And tell me if you've ever gone on DeviantArt or if you've ever gone on Google image search and you've seen fan art where it looks like that, where it's just a big head on a character and then it just tapers down to tiny little feet because the person's trying to squash it all in on the same page. So that's why back to earlier when I was talking about this, when I was talking about how long legs need to be and how many heads tall a figure is, the feet are actually going to be the same length as your wrist to your elbow. So that might seem like gigantic, huge feet, but that's how long everyone's feet is. If you measure it up on yourself right now, your foot is going to be as long as your elbow to your wrist. So I actually made this poor girl's feet a little too small. And obviously in the future, if you're designing a comic book character or you're designing an anime character and that's a stylistic choice to have really tiny feet, like for instance Mike Mignola, the artist for Hellboy, gives Hellboy tiny little feet. But that's a stylistic choice because it's a cartoon. When you're drawing a figure like this, you want to make sure that you at least know how big feet are supposed to be before you start shrinking them for style's sake. Again, hopefully that makes sense. Because too often I see people draw tiny little feet on their art. It kind of throws off your figure. One of the other benefits, yeah, feet are actually pretty huge. Think about it. Feet are your support. Feet are what are designed to hold up your body. And you've got all of your mass relying on these two little stubs. They got to be able to be bendy and flexible and also really big to hold you. One of the other benefits of like drawing digitally as opposed to drawing traditionally. So with this pose, I'm not actually happy with this leg right here. It's a little pointed out far. If we look at our model, she's got her leg not pointed out as far as I drew it. So in real life, I'd have to pull out my good old eraser. I'd have to erase this leg, and then I'd have to redraw it. But with the digital program, I can grab my lasso tool. I can grab the part of the sketch that I'm not happy with, and I get to move it. Oh, look at that. It's a miracle. And then I can adjust it accordingly. That way she's not pointing it out quite as far as I had drawn her. And then if I flip it, there we go, it looks pretty good. And so if you ever see me working on a poster or a piece, which, you know, I'm planning on streaming a lot more in the future, so you'll see me at some point, and you see me flipping it constantly, it's kind of like a self-check, like I'm constantly checking my work. Because certain things you won't notice, you won't activate that part of your brain until you flip it, and then your eye sees it, and you're like, whoa, I'm drawing that really weird. Oh, God, I keep doing it. Hang on, let me just save this real quick right here. There we go. And that is our basic figure. And a lot of times it helps me to see a figure when I put like a base color under it. Helps you see like the silhouette of your figure a little more. So you can actually like figure out your proportions and stuff. Because I can turn off the sketch and be like, oh yeah, that looks right. That looks like the figure I'm trying to draw. Now, don't be discouraged if you don't have a figure that looks like this right away. Like the first or second time you draw, it's going to take a number of practices to get a drawing like this. I mean, I've been drawing my whole life, but I've been practicing figures like this for 10 years at least. So just never give up. That's the biggest mistake anyone does who wants to learn how to draw, is they give up. And I think anyone can learn how to draw. Whether or not you're a creative person or not is, you know, up to yourself, whether or not you feel creative. But if you just want to learn how to draw, to have that skill, I believe it's a skill that anyone can have, as long as you put enough work into it. Because at its core, drawing is actually very technical. Drawing is a very technical skill that is learned through practice and study. Whereas creativity comes from a different part of your brain. It comes from how much you see composition, how you process color, how much you enjoy characters and things like that. But drawing is all about learning proportions of your figure. It's all about learning curvature and muscle memory and tons of things like that. Alright, so that was a basic crash course into figure drawing. I am going to, let's do another one over here. I'm going to pick another figure. Not this lady again. This lady looks kind of pissed. I'm going to search for another piece of reference art. So there's these books that they have in Japan called pose books, and they're my favorite for getting sketching forms, other than actually going to a live drawing session. If you don't have access to that wherever you live, pose books are like the next best thing. And pose books are